everyone. This is update for January 31, 2024, day 707 of the war and of the date update. Also catch up for January 29 and January 30. I'm going to start with general strategic updates as always, and then I'm going to switch to the situation on the battleground in Ukraine. So I'm going to first start with the news that probably everyone has seen, is that Ukrainian president is attempting to fire head of Ukrainian military, General Zaluzhny. It's the important part here is that this is obviously nasty, fight between Ukrainian president, and where actually it's initiated by Ukrainian president. Has the head of Ukrainian army did not sort of engage and try to stay away out of these attacks. But the point is, it's not about improving Ukrainian military or changing for anything better. It's just effectively like a dogfight, the fight for the power, because head of Ukrainian military has higher rating than more popular basically among population generally and in the army than Ukraine president, and by a significant margin, not just by little. Just for as a reminder, Ukrainian president term is expiring at the end of March, so basically less than 2 months at this point. After that, his legitimacy will be questionable, to say the best. Ukrainian parliament already has questionable legitimacy, so at that point, pretty much all of the elected political branches of Ukrainian power will be under question, and the legitimacy of their actions, laws, and everything again will be under huge question, and especially it will become more important as things will deteriorate, as there will be sort of, which will lead to more internal infighting as a result of that. And this example is just the first, I would say, sign of first sort of sign of things to come. The reason I'm showing this is how nasty it gets. Basically, Ukrainian president is using this talking head. This is a member of Ukrainian parliament. That's her name, you can see there. And so she started nasty personal attacks against head of Ukrainian army, including calling him alcoholic, and basically, saying here in this blurb, look at the face of this alcoholic. He's so red because he's alcoholic. Basically, very nasty attacks. It's obviously it's not her sort of own decision. It's Ukrainian president in action, sort of to say, against head of Ukraine army. I'm not going to say that he is a genius or he is excellent. I'm talking about the head of Ukraine army, but at the same time, he's not the worst. And unfortunately, what's going to happen? The person who probably will replace him is going to be even worse. And actually, that person, let's actually go to the look at the map. That person is actually now in charge of the North Lugansk and northern sector of the Donbass front line. So, and you will see a little bit later that the Ukrainian army is losing ground in North Lugansk, and he also failed, for example, in defending Bakhmut. That's his also direct personal responsibility. So that person is clearly not capable commander. So again, this going back to what I was saying is it's not change for better. It just finding someone who is super loyal, and it's always like that person who is super loyal usually low quality, and that's unfortunately where it's all going uh, in Ukraine. Uh, okay, let's. I'm gonna switch to the walks through the front line, um, as I always do in a clockwise fashion, starting from very north. So, as a general note, so I mentioned this before that Russian military is not in position to have any meaningful offensive, like similar to what they did in, let's say, first half of 2022. They don't have human resources. It's roughly 600 soldiers plus minus, and they don't have enough artillery shells. So basically, nothing is there to do it right now. They hope to do it later, once Ukrainian army is going to be exhausted and actually destabilized by the actions of Ukrainian president. That might be more sort of viable option, but at this point, it's simply not capable of any major offensive. Not to mention that Russian army still lacking skills. There was actually a video circulating. Russian army tried to attack in the area near Vuhledar and Novomykhailivka, and it was complete disaster. It was, I think, 11 units of armored equipment was destroyed in a single attack. Obviously, and it's total disaster. That's all I can say. Which again goes back to the that there is neither enough people, not enough artillery shells to compensate for all of that, and there's no skills in the Russian military command to do successful, true offensive operations. But at the same time, there's a caveat. There is sort of sign of intelligence that's starting to showing up in North Lugansk front line, and I'll discuss it once I get there. But still, it's just more like one-off. Once it's going to be, if it's going to be systemic, then Ukrainian army is going to be really in big trouble. But so far, it's more sounds like it's just sort of idiosyncratic situation because of the capable commander in a specific location. But it's not norm for for Russian military. Um, okay, so going back to all of this, so the chances of sort of offensive to offensive against Kharkiv, or attempting to capture Kiev, are not on the table at the moment. And even if Russian army will try to do that, that will be suicidal situation, which will lead to significant losses, and basically Russian army will be back to the situation of September 2022, where they were too thin, and then the section of the front line just collapsed under its own weight. It's not because the Ukrainian army was that great. It was just Russian army was completely exhausted and drained of people as a result of Ukrainian resistance, of Ukrainian population resistance. Just to give it clear credit, it's not Ukrainian military command. It's people, citizens of Ukraine, who did that, and they pay dearly with their own lives. So, so Russia will be back to that basics, and a Russian president is clearly not interested in doing another round of mobilization in Russia, because that's where what it will force in the next step. So I believe Russia is gonna be careful, and they're gonna wait for the right moment. But to be fair, that right moment is not far away. So um, so they might be they. That's another reason why I think they're gonna be patient, because they see that things are developing in Russia's favor over medium term, and they effectively just need to be patient and wait, and things will fall into their positions. Okay, let's now. So situation along the state border remains more or less the same. No essential changes there. Let's now jump to this North Luhansk front line, where I a little bit spoke about it. So Russian 47th division, mechanized division, made sort of next sort of follow-up advances. Uh, for those who didn't watch previous videos, they actually this salient. This is what they created about a week ago, and they kind of continuing to uh, pave the way towards Kupyansk. Um, and the reason I want to mention this that it's a first sign where I see actually signs of intelligence in Russian command at the sort of tactical level, and that's a result of that. That the Russian command, the Russian army was able to capture to advance. So I would say quite a bit in a short period of time because it doesn't look much in terms of it's not huge amount of territory, but if you compare it to the time and generally compare it to the whole situation where everything is super static, it looks like a huge achievement, to be fair. And the reason that this was this situation was successful is actually because this Russian commander, know who it is, but he was more intelligent in terms of not using sort of not hitting in the same place with the same sort of in the same way. It's like which is definition of insanity. He actually become a little bit more creative. Used actually tanks as assault guns to support infantry, didn't sort of follow just straight roads, and that was enough to overcome Ukrainian defenses. So it's not a rocket science; it's very simple things, but it kind of gives you a perspective of how sort of backwards military command is in the Russian army. Ukraine army is not, unfortunately, much different. So again, this is some local sign of intelligence. Hopefully, it's not going to spread through the entire front line. But so far, it yields positive results for the Russian army. The in the southern sort of sector of this front line, things are stable. Now let's look at the situation in the north on the north Donbass front line. Things here in the northern sector are quiet, as they always are, or I would say most of the time. And then the situation west of Bakhmut and southwest of Bakhmut, back kind of to basic. It's still pretty low level pressure from the Russian side. It's not high intensity. Now let's look at the situation on the Donbass front line. Things here are remain more or less the same. The Russian pressure around Avdiivka kind of like on the lower end. Unclear if they just regrouping, they bringing more reserves, but whatever it is, but it's on the lower end. And then they attempted this attacks around Novomikhailivka, as I mentioned before. And here it's a typical example of Russian command where they all lined up on the road and were essentially all destroyed by Ukrainian FPV drones. For those who don't know what FPV means, it means first person view. And this is basically like a game. It's actually coming from the gaming sort of industry, or from gamers, where they basically have a goggles and they direct. They have a video channel to the drone, and they directed the flight of the drone with some explosive attached to the drone, and it hits the target, and obviously it's hollow charge in most of the cases, and it obviously destroys the armored equipment. Or you can have sometimes it's 2-3 hits, but eventually your fate is sealed. And so basically Russian command decided to as I said, put this at least 11 units of equipment in one line, and they all were destroyed. Basically, horrific results, and this is sort of typical representation of the Russian attack. As I said before, hopefully it doesn't change to how things are on the North Lugansk front line. So, as a result, obviously, Ukrainian forces were able to hold their positions. Now let's move to the Zaporizhya front lines. Things here more or less the same, fairly quiet. There's some pretty weak Russian attacks around the Srobodyna area, but nothing really major here. And then now let's finish with the situation along the Dnipro River. Here things also remain the same, status quo. Some pretty weak Russian attacks, no ability to dislodge Ukrainian bridgehead, so we just pull and push without really any, I'd say, chances of resolving in either direction. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye bye.